This presentation discusses the politics of unplanning of the languages in Nepal and is based on an article written in 2009 by Ram Ashik Giri, a reader in the Faculty of Education at the Tribhuvan University in Nepal. It outlines the socio-political and linguistic pretexts of the unplanning of languages, which favors Nepali and English, and explains why privileging of Nepali and English, essential though they are for education, employment, and access to the world resources, has, in the existing situation, done more harm than good. Following Dua, the unplanning of languages means deliberate avoiding, delaying, and ignoring of language-related issues, or imposition of hidden agendas in the pretentious contention of nationalism in order to create and promote language hegemony in favor of the languages of the dominant groups. The unplanning of languages has been responsible for the loss of scores of languages, and it has helped elites to achieve planned linguistic edge over the speakers of other languages. Nepal is considered to be the Mecca of linguists. The 2011 national census lists 123 Nepalese languages spoken as a mother tongue in Nepal. Although Nepal consists predominantly of a Hindu nation inhabiting the foothills of the Himalayas, Nepal has always been linguistically and culturally overshadowed by two socio-political and economic giants, China and India. Ethnographically, Nepal is a meeting point of a number of cultures blending into diversified cultural and linguistic richness. Currently, all three types of language situations, namely monolingualism, bilingualism, and multilingualism, exist in Nepal. Languages, both dominant and non-dominant, are constructed throughout the social life of the people of different ethnic backgrounds, and they influence their choice and use of languages. Nepal, however, has not been able to harness its cultural and linguistic resources. Following the establishment of the autocratic Rana regime in the 19th century to the Panchayat rule in the 20th century, it adopted a policy that regards linguistic and cultural diversity as a threat rather than a resource. Within the country may find genetic affiliations to four different language families, namely Indo-European, Sino-Tibetan, Austroasiatic, and Dravidian. Indo-Aryan languages constitute the largest group of languages in terms of their speakers. Of all Indo-Aryan languages, 9 languages are spoken as the first languages by over 3/4 of the population. Nepali, as the first language of nearly 50% of the population, is spoken in the hills and in far western mountains, some part of the Terai, and in urban areas. Therefore, numerically, Indo-Aryan languages overshadow all other languages. Urban and suburban areas are by and large inhabited by the people of mixed ethnicity. Nepali comes handy as a link language. The use of mother tongue gradually decreases in such areas, even in family situations, as the people live there longer. Families with intercaste marriage and people returning to their villages after a considerable lapse of time tend to use Nepali in their villages because its use denotes being educated, economically well-to-do, and socially superior. Nepali is perceived to be instrumental as well as threatening. It is instrumental for its role in education and socio-economic development. As the language of education, administration, and business, it has helped develop a uniform and organized system of operation throughout the nation. However, its ever-growing importance is a threat which entrenches the already existing societal and class divisions even further. It also endangers the survival of local languages. As a consequence, a tendency in non-Nepali speakers is emerging in their language use, that is, language shift. There is a decreasing trend in the use of ethnic languages and increasing trend in the use of Nepali. Speakers of ethnic languages moving to urban areas for education and employment go through the transition of bilingualism with Nepali increasingly replacing their mother tongue. The other side of the linguistic coin in Nepal is largely influenced by the hegemony of English. Hegemony of language is defined as controlling the distribution of knowledge and learning of other languages except the elite languages. English in Nepal was imported historically for ideological and/or political reasons, for using it as a linguistic edge to strengthen the socio-political superiority of the ruling elites, and to reserve the access to world resources, economic and educational, for themselves. In theory, it has been available to anyone and everyone through public education since the 1950s. In practice, however, no rigorous planning of resources and pedagogic mechanism have been worked out for its effective delivery to the average people. Therefore, for most of the 6 millions of schoolgoers, proficiency in the language remains underachieved. In this way, the unplanning of English language education has been a strategy of the elites to divide the broader Nepalese society. And so the choice of a second language is not constrained by one's ethnicity, but by economics and privileges. The people speaking over 57 Sino-Tibetan languages, for example, do not choose a second language from the same language family, but adopt Nepali as their second language conditioned by contact, peer pressure, employment, education, and economic success. The non-NFL speakers, as a result of the linguistic domination, have lost pride in their own languages, feel discriminated against, and have developed a tendency to neglect their languages in favor of Nepali. The invisible policy of unplanning may be attributed to a number of strategies or tactics. The ruling elites employ a number of tactics to appease the public, but at the same time maintain the social structure and consolidate their position. Language policy making is rarely seen as a multidisciplinary process. Language-related issues are not discussed openly and public opinions are seldom sought. Some elite linguists are tactfully chosen so that the outcomes of such a process help keep the current socio-political structure intact. Language cynicism is also common. For example, the 1990 constitution recognized Nepali as Rashtra Bhasha and other local languages as Rashtriya Bhasha. The literal translation of these two terms may be roughly language of the nation and national languages. To any person who knows some Nepali, the distinction between the two is blurred, as they roughly mean the same thing. However, in practice, Nepali, the Rashtra language, gets all privileges, while other Rashtriya languages are mainly left to the people who speak them without resources and support. After a fierce criticism from linguists, the dichotomy has been dropped from the 2007 internal constitution of Nepal. However, Nepali remained as the most privileged and the only language of administration, business at all levels. Moreover, there is a tendency in the concerned authorities, mainly comprising ruling elites, to avoid or ignore language-related issues. The reports on and complaints about language-related issues are numerous. Despite repeated requests by the academia and the people concerned for actions, up to 2015 there had been no definitive courses of action to address their concerns. People, tired of their indifferent attitude of the authorities, either lose their interest or their motivation to pursue the matter any further, or lose their patience. The authorities, when approached with a language-related issue, often kept promising to do the needful. Yet, when they say that they will do the needful, it often meant no need to take any action. One other example of such complacency could be seen in the interim constitution of 2007. In the changed political context of 1990, for example, the political parties which promised to review the ethnic and minority language and cultures issues offered no significant initiatives except making a brief mention of the issue in official documents. As indicated earlier, the concerned authorities hold a language-related issue as long as they can without taking any action on it. An example of such a delaying tactics is the policy on Sanskrit, which after a long debate with the introduction of the Language Education Policy Recommendation Commission of 1994, offered young students a choice between the mother tongue as a subject instead of compulsory Sanskrit. This optional replacement, however, would go into effect for those entering the school system in 1994, and thus include children just entering the education system. This means that the policy would allow the authority 6 years to sort out the policy on Sanskrit. There is also a big discrepancy between what the authorities promised through their plans and proposals and what is actually delivered. This could be due to the fact that Nepal is a highly bureaucratic and centralized system. Most of the decision taken at the central level is rarely supported by carefully planned implementation strategies and needed skilled human resources at the local level. For most plans, therefore, the local implementation capability and resourcing mechanisms are not considered. Many plans are nothing but exercises in wishful thinking or even futility. Another example of unplanning could be seen in the lack of a political will or position on languages, including the English language. In 2009, there was a plethora of official documents reiterating the state's plan for effective and quality English language education for all. In practice, however, there was no political consensus to ensure models of resource provision for achieving such a goal. As a result, there was not enough resource, both human and material, and support mechanisms at the local level. Quality and effective ELE for all thus remained an illusion. The plans and proposal were simply perceived as a bureaucratic tactic to appease some people rather than to improve its practices. As a consequence of all these tactics, language policy in Nepal for a long time has been subservient of all the national politics. In other words, linguistic change is a part of the political change of a nation. By unplanning its linguistic resources, the ruling elites have been responsible for the systematic extinction of minority and ethnic languages. They manipulate languages to serve their interest, and they use them to maintain the power structure, influence public opinion, channel political energies, and allocate economic resources for the education and promotion of the languages of their choice. Their approach marginalizes their speakers of other languages and unfairly disadvantages them in accessing socio-political and economic opportunities, resources, and employment. And so, the unplanning of languages privileges Nepali and English, thus causing a declining parity of esteem of ethnic and indigenous languages. As a result, these language communities are gradually losing their speakers. Furthermore, the integration policy aimed at social transformation is creating tension because speakers of ethnic or minority languages are discriminated against those of mainstream. And yet, there are some positive recent developments. The 2015 Nepali Constitution finally recognized some of the problems. And so, in Article 6, titled Language of the Nation, we may read that all mother tongue spoken in Nepal shall be the national language. Furthermore, although Nepali written in Devanagari script shall be the language of official business in Nepal, every province may select one or more national language that is spoken by majority of people in that province as the language of official business, as provided for by the provincial law. And although, as we may read, other matters concerning language shall be decided by the government of Nepal on the recommendation of the Language Commission, the new constitution seems to have brought some hope to a number of speakers for whom Nepali and English are not their go-to languages. This presentation was prepared by Olga Łabędowicz, a PhD candidate at the Faculty of Philology of the University of Łódź in Poland. Thank you for your attention.